So today we will be talking about the Shroud of Turin, what it is, its significance, why it continues to be a source of intrigue for everyone, and most importantly, why it was in the news as recently as last week.
Prakhar, we are all
Hmm.
coming to your Linkin Park tribute gig.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to promote that? But this episode will come after the fact,
It
so
will
it
come
doesn't matter.
afterwards.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
No, so we can be like, oh my God, that Linkin Park concert, that show was so great. Did you guys enjoy that show?
It's also amazing because most of our listeners are like the majority of our listeners are not even in India. So
That
it
is
is
true. That is true.
it's difficult to when you go on your US tour, hopefully we'll have more number of listeners so that promoting your US tour is actually going to do something. Otherwise, turns out like there are 6 people we are promoting to. That's kind of
That's
sad.
6 more people
Um,
then, So
I mean, only if I don't get beaten up in US because of the episodes that you've done, Ashmita.
Why will you get beaten up?
Do you think they have a reasoning and a
Do you think
solid
they're
re
listening to this? I don't think they're listening to this. People who are going to beat you
well,
up are not listening to this.
also you're forgetting the fact that they check all the social media history, and I don't think Prakhar will be getting a visa anymore. So the
that is
matter is
also true.
closed. The
No,
matter
no,
is
this
closed.
is,
That is also true.
he's not going, he's going with, I mean, you're going as a part of a
So
band
what?
and everything. It is,
Still, everybody's social history is being checked, even if he's the fucking president himself. So
Praga, delete everything. Just delete fucking all
I don't
accounts.
think it works like that, no.
You can delete accounts. I know people who have
But
done
they
this.
still, but they still have access to the data, no? Isn't that?
That's not how. Oh, you are giving so much credit to them. That's not what they're doing. They are literally going on your WhatsApp and searching for keywords. And they're searching for your account. I know about this gentleman who was marked as yellow. They have green, which is go, and
Hmm.
red, which is you cannot get the visa, and yellow, which is in consideration, like they have to check. Apparently,
Hmm.
that's the case. I genuinely don't know. This is not verified. But his profile came in a little bit of contest because he did not disclose his Reddit username, which is wild because if somebody asks me what are your social media usernames, Reddit will not even come to my mind, despite the fact that I'm full day lurking on Reddit only. Like I'm just there at all points of time, but I go there to see cat videos and everything. It's not social media. Nobody knows me over there. I don't engage with anybody in that case. So I don't know. It's a weird system that they
Yeah,
do
I
this.
mean, like I have a free opinion, it can be of about anything. Why do I have to be praising or in a certain way that I can actually go and travel? And also it is US. I don't want to travel to US until unless I have some work, by the way. So it's not like I'm dying to go to the US. So
That's not
it's
how
fine.
US considers
I
us
know, I
anymore.
know, I know.
It's not just us, it is anybody who doesn't present white Americans. So,
Mm.
like, basically, I am not going to apply for a visa till the time all of this is done. And I don't know. I don't know. It is too much money to spend to go to a country where first you might not get entry, and second,
Yeah.
even if you do, you might get, you know, picked up, harassed. Why? There are so many other pretty countries that I can go to. It's not like anybody's giving me a job in US. So
do
yeah.
you want a job in the US?
I don't mind getting a job in US where I get to make. Actually, I do not want a job in US. I was about to say I can make some good money and then come back, but I'm also now inching towards my 40s. So I will need some medical care or sometime or the other. There might be, like, I might exercise wrong and might pull my back or something, and that'll bankrupt me. And I don't know. I don't want that. Do you have a segue, Sandy?
Not really. I was hoping for a few keywords, but none of them popped up. So we'll just
Maybe
have to
you can
power
brief
through it.
us in the beginning of the episode if you are
Just
so keen on getting keywords in.
No,
it's
it's
a
fine.
is it a topical
Yes, it's
thing?
very topical.
Like,
It's very
Prahar
is it?
wants to
topical.
guess.
So it's very topical because of the fact of, again, this was a trending sort of topic on Twitter. One day last week, I came across this and it immediately caught my attention, and I thought there was no way I could not talk about this. I just want to start off with a news article.
Oh my God, again?
Can you see this?
Jesus.
Yeah.
What the
Yes.
So
fuck?
for
Okay.
our audio listeners, the article I'm showcasing them is from the Indian Express. It says the Shroud of Turin, linked by believers to Jesus Christ, has an Indian DNA trace, claims a study. Now, this is
Claims a
what,
study.
yes, right? So this
Wow.
is this
The
is what
study is done
triggered
by Sadhguru.
this is what
Yeah.
triggered this episode. By the way, before we start, like most of my episodes, I want to begin with a very simple question. Has either one of you ever heard of something known as the Shroud of Turin? Do you guys know what the Shroud of Turin is?
I've heard
I
of it,
have
but I have
no
no
idea.
idea what the fuck it is.
I
Yeah.
mean, you will know of it either if you know enough about historical stuff, or if you've read or watched any of the Dan Brown movies or books. So
I
you
have,
know,
again, I read a lot of history and I have read all Dan Brown books because there was a phase when I wasn't reading good books. I have watched all Dan Brown movies because in general I watch shitty
yeah.
movies, but I do not remember Shroud of, like, I have heard of it. I do not remember what it was at all.
Yeah. I don't know what that is, so
No issues. I
I
was
have
hoping
nothing
that
to.
both of you won't either know or remember any of this, so that it helps me proceed with the episode, you know. So, for a surprisingly large number of people, the Shroud of Turin is
Hmm.
the resounding answer to the question, was Jesus Christ an actual person? And their evidence is this roughly 14-foot strip of ancient linen known as the Shroud of Turin.
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
Okay.
Now, if you are a skeptic, you're probably already reaching for the skip button, assuming we're about to dive deep into a Dan Brown fever dream. But please hold your horses for just a second. Because this piece of fabric is arguably the most studied, poked, prodded, and argued over object in human history. Again, arguably. It is one of the most famous slash infamous pieces of history, if you will. It is an object that manages to be simultaneously a holy relic for millions and a massive unsolvable migraine for the scientific community. It's a 2000-year-old, in brackets, I'm putting question mark because no one knows. It's roughly a 2000-year-old mystery that refuses to behave according to the rules of history, art, or even physics for that matter. So let's talk about why we are still talking about a very old piece of cloth, essentially. It's basically a very old piece of cloth, right?
Hmm.
Because as it turns out, this bed sheet, for people who are just listening on audio, I'm not calling it a fucking bed sheet. Don't get triggered by this. It's essentially a piece of cloth. It could be a bed sheet for all I care, right? I'm using quote marks here. This bed sheet contains a high resolution, anatomically perfect photographic negative of a tortured man created centuries before anyone knew what a photographic negative was. So today, we will be talking about the Shroud of Turin, what it is, its significance, why it continues to be a source of intrigue for everyone, and most importantly, why it was in the news as recently as last week. And this is literally last week as of the time of recording. We are recording on the 5th of
I
April. So this was literally last week, this news article. Yeah, go on.
Where was it trending on? Like what? Like which? Like was it
Twitter.
trending in India
X.
or no? But
Uh, I don't. Yeah, yeah. It was definitely, dude. tell me this, knowing all the people on the Indian internet there are, something as simple as this popped up in anybody's newsstream. What do you think the reaction would be of all Indians everywhere?
Imagine the right wing jerking
There
off
you go.
of this.
There you go. And that's what basically wanted me to sort of cover this topic in bit more detail, right?
We should
So
have our friend, on this episode, and you know who we should have.
uh, it's okay. So before we get into who owned it, who fought over it, and who called it fake to their face, let's first talk about what this thing actually is. The Shroud of Turin is a long piece of linen cloth that is believed by many to be the burial garment of Jesus Christ. And just to set the scene properly, this isn't something sitting in a random museum corner with a dusty label somewhere, right? It has been preserved since 1578 in the Royal Chapel of the Cathedral of San Giovanni Battista in Turin, Italy. So it's been
Hmm.
treated with a certain level of heft and importance, as you might imagine, right? For centuries, this cloth has sat right at the intersection of belief and skepticism. For some people, it is a very sacred relic, directly connected to Jesus Christ himself. For others, it's a historical object that raises far more questions than it answers. And for pretty much everyone in between, it's basically an ongoing debate that refuses to settle down. And believe me, this debate has been going on for decades and decades and decades. Pretty much since the time we could do any kind of scientific testing. And not even that. This debate has been going on for centuries on end. For centuries.
What is the debate? Like,
The
what's the
authentic
debate?
the authenticity of the cloth itself has been in question since the very first moment in time where it was found or discovered. You know,
It's like the right wing exists everywhere.
Of
They
course.
believe, the same thought process is what I mean.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like it's
That's
like
what makes
a
them the right wing.
yeah.
I mean,
This is
world
so
over
weird.
in like this was like it to no one's surprise. For example, the Crusades, the Renaissance, pretty much all of them were caused because of some form of conservatism or other, right? So the Crusades were as a result of the Christians being overpowering and the church, the Catholic Church being like this, the pretty much all of Europe needs to be converted to Christianity, right? And that's what
Mm,
I'm sure it's more complex than that. I know just a little bit, but that was the basic fundamental reason why they started the Crusades, right? Similarly, Renaissance, when scientific discovery started happening, when people discovered that the Earth was not the center of the universe or even the solar system, and the church took
mm,
great offense, and a lot of the Galileo, he was blinded. Copernicus was stoned to death. All of these people who were making some kind of scientific discovery, they were treated horribly because they went against the beliefs of the church around that time. And that
mhm.
is
Yeah.
what we know as the modern
Yeah.
Renaissance now, right? And anyway,
But I
going
feel
back
like
to
you can
the
let them have a cloth. Like if it's of religious significance and it's just a cloth, like just
okay,
fucking let it
nobody
be.
is taking the cloth away from them. They're just trying to establish, and this is not just the scientific community in general, this is just people from all over the world. There are some people who are blind
Yeah.
believers, there are some people who believe in facts, and that is
Yeah.
fine.
They're asking the right question. It's just that these people
Yeah,
are
it
not
is.
ready to, maybe just because they're scared that what they're saying might be true. So either they're scared and they don't want to go ahead with whatever, but they're asking the right questions is what is important.
Yeah, yeah. And it's absolutely fine. Like, if you need to be convinced a little bit, it's fine. They're just asking to be
Yeah.
convinced, that's all, right? And that's pretty much the case for everything. Anyway, going back to the topic. Now, physically speaking, the cloth itself is about 4.3 meters long and roughly about 1.1 meters wide. So for us, it's
Mm,
it's basically like a long as single bed sheet, roughly the size of a long bed sheet, a single bed
mm,
sheet, or for Indians, like it's roughly
Shawl.
slightly like a shawl, even a sari, a shorter sari of
mm.
some kind. It's that
Yeah.
dimensions. So this is basically not a handkerchief, is what we've established so far. This is a full-length, human-sized piece of fabric. And what makes it so unusual is the image on it. Has either one of you ever seen an image of the Shroud of Turin?
I am waiting for you to share a picture, by the way,
Glad,
I
since the
think I
very
have.
beginning.
very glad. Because what you see are two very faint, slightly brownish images, one on the front of a man and not on the front, one of the front of a man and one of the back. Almost as if a body had been laid out on one half of the cloth and then the other half had been folded over the head to cover the front from face to feet.
It's like a taco by the explanation. This just looks like a
This,
piece of wood.
I mean, it's a very old piece of cloth, so obviously it has colored, like discoloration over the years has taken place. And also, if you remember going back to the episode we did about pink, during the medieval
Hmm.
ages, especially, the
Hmm.
most popular color was bleached white, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Unbleached white.
Sorry, unbleached white, you're right. So
Yeah.
white over the years due to greases, oils, dust, particles, just random aging of the cloth, it discolors, right? It gains this yellow tint comes onto it. Anyway,
How? What imprints were you talking about? I can't see anything. It's just random
are you
pattern
sure?
is
Are
what
you
I'm
sure you
seeing.
can't see anything?
I mean, it looks like people like
Oh
a
fuck! I
person
just saw the
standing,
yeah,
lying
yeah, the
down
lower
with
the
a
lower half of the cloth I can see
yeah, and the
now.
upper half also has it.
Mhm, yes, it
Yeah,
The
has
upper
an
yeah, yeah,
half.
imprint.
yeah.
So basically, those who are not the for the listeners, Sandy is showing us the Shroud of Turin, and I have seen this before. I just did not pay attention to it even in the slightest, and it does look like there is the imprint of one person, and by imprint I mean literally somebody sketching into it. Like it is not
Yeah,
an. It's that's not how pieces of cloth
This is
work
this is
where if you lie
yeah.
down on it, your imprint comes onto
yeah,
it like
yeah.
this. But it's just the front and back across the cloth, across the piece of cloth. And if you're confused, please look this up because it's difficult to describe.
This is too clear to be true, by the way.
It
The
is
print.
absolutely.
Okay, might I just mention? So the imprints came way after some sort of scientific stuff and photography was done, but the actual imprint, I don't believe it to be as clear as it is shown in this. It is obviously, as you might imagine, a person doesn't just get imprinted onto a piece of cloth, usually. At
Yeah.
Hmm.
least not
Yeah.
none
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
know
yeah.
of. So
Yeah.
okay, keep this image in mind. Now we'll
Yeah.
proceed.
There was something on that shoulders. I can't make anything of it. I don't know what
Yeah,
that is, but wings or something like that, maybe.
yeah. It almost looks like shoulder pads, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I don't really care if it's actually Jesus Christ himself or some other random person from the Middle Ages, but I'd be extremely remiss if I didn't point out the very pertinent fact that this is all fucking creepy. It's fucking creepy. Okay,
Fair.
that's all I'm going to say on that matter. Anyway, the figure in the
Someone had
shroud,
to say
it's
that.
yeah, absolutely, dude. If you look at it, the first time I saw it, I was slightly creeped out. I'm like, this doesn't like put me at ease at all, you know.
Why? It is, you said it's it's like photographic negative that
Yes,
has done that.
I'm
It's not.
I am not see, I have no thoughts on the shroud itself. It's just all the image put together with the man just calmly lying down. It's very slightly creepy. It's like almost watching a mummy. Mummies are not inherently creepy because they're essentially dead bodies from millennia ago. But still, it's creepy. The
Hmm.
entire scenario put together, it's a bit creepy. Is it not?
Mummies are creepy
It
because they're
is.
literally dead bodies. Of
Yes.
course, they're creepy.
This is also the imprint of a fucking dead body. We just don't know whose dead body it was.
Just, I'm sure across history, if you take many other objects, that such imprints will come about. Like
Yeah.
dig up graves and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
will see that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the shroud. The figure in the shroud itself is described as gaunt with sunken eyes, roughly about 1.7 meters tall. But what really draws attention are the markings on the body, because these
Hmm.
markings appear to line up quite conveniently, depending on your perspective, of course, with the injuries described in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Right?
Oh, really?
You have what look like thorn marks on the head, lacerations across the back that resemble flogging, bruising on the shoulders, and various stains that are presumed to be blood. And now that you have that image in your head, let's talk about when this thing actually shows up in recorded history.
Hmm.
Because for something this significant, for a lot of people around the world, you would expect a very clear origin story, right?
Hmm.
Maybe a very well documented chain of custody. But the historian's guess is as good as yours or mine, which does leave a lot to be desired in this case, right? The first time the shroud makes a confirmed appearance is in 1354, when it somehow ends up with a French knight named Geoffroy de Charnay, who was the Lord of Lire. Lire is a very small sort of settlement somewhere in France. That's where it first pops up. Now, naturally, the very first question here is, how did he get it? Reasonable enough,
Hmm.
right? How did the shroud come to be in his position in the first place? Not position, possession. And the answer is, we have absolutely no fucking idea. No documentation, no explanation, no nothing. It just seems to appear in his possession out of thin air. A few decades later, in 1389, the shroud was put on public display, and almost immediately things get a little bit dramatic. The local bishop of Troyes, it's Troyes, it's a either a municipality or a city in France. Troyes takes one look at it and basically says, "Yeah, no, this is fucking fake." He called it apparently, and I quote, cunningly painted, and even claims that the artist who made it had admitted to creating it. And again, all of this is pretty much speculation as we are talking about it, right? Even the authenticity and the inauthenticity, both of them are speculations at this point of time.
Hmm.
Now, at this point, you might expect the church to step in and give a definitive ruling, right? Because after all, it's their sort of prerogative to clear out air on such things. But instead, we get a very careful, almost diplomatic response, almost as if they had a PR agency on call, telling them exactly what to say. A sanitized response, if you will. And in case you are still guessing, they responded saying it's neither true nor false. They can neither confirm nor deny. They said it is what it
Hmm.
is, assume it to be sacred and just keep praying to it. That's what they said, essentially. Okay. So So the Avignon anti-pope Clement VII, he was the pope between 1378 and 1394, roughly around the same time. And what I mean by anti-pope is someone in the Roman Catholic Church, one who opposes the legitimately elected Bishop of Rome, and he endeavors to secure the papal throne and to some degree succeeds materially in the attempt. Also, apparently this was a time of great turmoil in the Roman Catholic Church, apparently, because there were multiple popes and pretty much all of them didn't accept the other one as the pope. So it was a clusterfuck, basically, right? Anyway, so
As
this
opposed to
guy,
the very
Anti-pope.
structured and clean
yeah,
system that exists
yeah.
in
Ever
organized
since then,
religion today.
yes. Anyway, so this
Anti-pope
guy,
sounds very funny, by the way.
Yeah, I love
yeah,
it. I love the
Anti-pope.
concept of an anti-pope.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he's an anti-pope to become the pope,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So
Which is just that's unfortunate, but anti-pope in general must be such a cool
yeah,
concept.
yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, so this guy, Clement VII, he basically allows the shroud to be displayed, but only as an image or representation of the real burial cloth, which is essentially the medieval equivalent of saying we're neither confirming nor denying anything, but feel free to look at it respectfully from a distance. So this was basically the church's stance around that time. This is connecting to the earlier point that I made. And then in a very
Which is
classic,
also so
yeah,
different from again religious group stance otherwise, which is where
yeah.
they demand concrete proof of everything. They do not
Yeah,
take anything at face value.
they're fully on vibes here.
Mm-hmm.
They're fully on vibes.
Yes, as opposed to all of religion,
Yeah, yeah.
which is fully based on
Vibes.
facts,
Yeah, yeah. It's based in science, as we all know.
science, yes.
And then in a very classic historical move, later popes just quietly tried to shift the narrative, very against the brand. From Pope Julius II, who was the pope between 1503 and 1513, so about a century and a half, 2 centuries later, after the previous thing. The shroud's authenticity is more or less taken for granted. No big
Mm-hmm.
announcements, no dramatic reversals, just a very slow, gradual acceptance. It became a part of their narrative almost, right? That this is the actual shroud of the Christ. Narratives were spun, faith was brought into question for those who didn't believe in it, and thus it was established as the shroud of the Christ. Because otherwise, you would be a heretic, and we all know what happened during for two heretics during that time in the medieval ages. Then in 1453, Geoffroy de Charnay's granddaughter. Geoffroy de Charnay was the original guy who had the shroud with him. He was the first guy in recorded history who had the shroud with him. Right, the very first guy. So his
Yeah,
granddaughter, Marguerite,
Mm.
hands the shroud over to the House of Savoy, and it ends up in Chambéry. Again, all of this is in France, regional France, right? Which is
Mm.
great, except in 1532, there's a fire and the shroud gets damaged by both fire and water. And apparently, because of the heat, there was some silver which got melted somewhere, and it also poked some holes into the linen of the shroud. So, again, just very quickly going back to the shroud, I just want to showcase another thing, just in case you didn't notice it during the first viewing, which is if you notice these, there are these sort of almost like holes in these patterned holes.
Mm.
The
oh,
the
these are
triangle
Mm-hmm.
shaped
holes.
the triangle shaped holes almost. So as you can imagine, the
Look like
cloth must
foot
be folded,
marks.
right? The cloth must be folded.
Yeah,
So once it was folded, any point it basically burned through the cloth, right?
yeah.
So
Mm.
apparently they retrospectively sort of repaired it using some old-fashioned cloth to sort of fill in the gaps and stuff. So a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
work has gone into it after the fact. But this damage that you notice was because of that fire all those centuries ago in France where it was kept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That hole, the
yeah,
particular small hole, seems to be more in line with when I don't know if this has ever happened to you. Of course, this has happened to you. But the holes that happen when you are smoking and some
yeah,
cinders fall on.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So I
So
think
you mean to
that is
say
more likely. It's a tiny fucking hole, man. I've seen those holes in so many of our of our things. Like,
Yeah.
without context, this may sound so weird, Ashmita.
what do you mean? Somebody was smoking and a cinder fell and it happens it has happened to every single smoker on the planet.
Also, we don't know for a fact what caused the fire. So everything is on
Mm.
the table at this minute. It could be pretty much anything, right? You're all going to hell. I swear.
Yeah, now we are going to hell, not because of all the other things we have done in the past.
Yeah. Anyway, eventually in 1578, it moved to Turin, which became its permanent home. And since
Hmm.
then, it hasn't exactly been casually displayed. It's been shown to the public only on very rare occasions, like for the marriage of Prince Umberto II in 1931. For those who don't know, even I didn't know, he was the king of Italy for a very brief amount of time during that period, early 30s, late 20s,
Mm-hmm.
early 30s. And then again in 1978 to mark 400 years of it being in Turin, right? Those were the only two of the very other extremely handful of occasions where it has been showed publicly to people. Otherwise, it's kept under lock and key. I don't know why. It is what it is, right?
Hmm.
Now, talking of rare occasions, here is an occasion for an ad to make a public appearance. See you on the other side. All right, welcome back from the break. Now we move on to some sciencey stuff that took place around the Shroud of Turin, right?
Wait,
Mhm.
before we go forward, did I miss this part? Was I distracted? Why was it specifically brought back to Turin? Like, why Turin? Why not something like why not Jerusalem?
That's a good point. I could not find anything related to the fact, but my best guess is because Italy and like Florence, Turin, all of these were like extreme religious hotspots for the Catholic Church around that time during the medieval, like 13, 14,
Ah, okay.
1500s, 1600s. So
Hmm.
my best guess is they took it to Turin because it was one of the epicenters of the Roman Catholic Church around that time. So
It is their version of मंदिर यहीं बनाएंगे.
yeah, exactly, yeah, pretty much. So now we move into the part of the story where science rolls up its sleeves and goes headfirst into this entire thing to figure it out properly, whatever properly might be, right? So scholars and
Mm-hmm.
researchers have been trying to prove or disprove the authenticity of the shroud using scientific methods since the late 19th century, right? Nobody's surprised about this. And one of the first genuinely interesting observations came in 1898 when someone noticed that the images on the shroud, these faint sepia toned impressions, behave more like photographic negatives than positives. So, just in case this
Hmm.
gets a bit confusing, so the outlines of the person lying in the shroud, those were not inherently or evidently visible beforehand. All of them were done after the very first evidence that there could be someone inside who is probably Jesus Christ took place in 1898. And this is a very, very, very interesting point here. I want to take a very slight tangent on this point. The photographer that took the very first recorded photo of the shroud was an Italian
Mm-hmm.
lawyer and amateur photographer called Secondo Pia. His claim to fame was this
Okay.
photo of the Shroud of Turin that looked like a photographic negative. Nowadays, we have a photo effect in his name. Would either one of you care to hazard a guess? The clue is in the
N-
Can
name.
you can you repeat that exactly? Can you repeat the name?
Secondo Pia,
Sepia.
sepia.
Hmm.
That is
Hmm.
where, and I'm sure both of you know what sepia effect is, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sepia is basically secondopia, short form for
Oh,
secondopia.
nice.
And once I came across this, it was so fucking interesting to me. Like I have to tell you guys about this. Like this is how the sepia effect came into public general knowledge because
Hmm.
of this guy called Secondopia who took the very first recorded photo of the Shroud of Turin. That was basically his foray
Hmm.
into the world of photography, right? Now I'll show you the creepy ass photo that this guy took. Can
Everything about this is so creepy, and still people think it is not creepy.
you see this?
Oh
Yes.
shit.
Can you see this outline of what seems to be like a person, a bearded, long haired person?
Mm-hmm.
This,
Yes.
so when he took the actual photo, nothing showed up, obviously. And
Hmm.
then when he started, for lack of a better word, the sepia effect came into effect, this thing popped up, almost like in the negative aspect of
Hmm.
that. And this is actually the original photo that this guy took in Turin in
Nice.
1898.
The weird thing is that you can actually see the mustache and the teeth.
Yeah.
How can it be so clear?
It seems so much like the Jesus on a bread sort of a this
Yeah,
thing
yeah, yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Like
yes.
you can see anything if you really
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the pseudoscience, psychology, this thing, that if you really put your mind to it, you can see a lot of things on random objects.
And
Yeah.
how is the face so perfectly rectangular?
Yeah.
Going back to the photo, to be very honest, it was not PR's fault that this thing cropped up. He just took a
Yeah.
fucking photo and developed the negative,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
Yeah.
yeah,
understandably, around that time, anything which was not easily comprehensible or something strange had happened, he was ostracized from society. People called him a
yeah. Oh
sorcerer, and
no.
all of that shit happened. And then basically, I think, if I'm not mistaken, sometime in the 1930s or 40s, there was some other guy who also took the photo, and his photos also basically showed up the same thing. That's when
Can
Mm-hmm.
I
he was
say
sort
it's
of,
so funny? It is so funny for a lawyer to be ostracized for photography, because lawyer's profession has enough things to be ostracized for. Like,
yes, but
you're
like
a
people,
lawyer.
since time immemorial, people have taken religion extremely seriously. Like that is
Yeah,
one
no
of the
Yeah.
shit.
religion is one of the basic cornerstones upon which literally wars have been fought. So
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, ostracizing someone is extremely believable. I mean, that's the easiest route they could take. They didn't lynch him to death, so
yeah,
it is what it is. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. I mentioned the photograph in the first place because it is a very weird thing for something that supposedly existed centuries before photography, right?
Mm-hmm.
From that point on, things get increasingly experimental. Starting in the 1970s, scientists began running a series of tests to figure out how the image was actually formed. They looked into whether it could have been painted, whether pigments were used, whether it was created using heat or scorching of some kind, or any other method
Mm-hmm.
that would make sense within known scientific processes, right? Because as far as science is concerned, back in the age of Christ, there was no known scientific method to ensure that this imprint is left on this fucking piece of cloth,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you could conceivably do that in the 21st century. There are like a million ways you could do this.
Mm-hmm.
But in the age of Christ, I'm a bit skeptical about that. Like there weren't,
yeah,
enough technological advancements made around that time, right?
yeah,
And to no one's surprise, the results of all these tests were not very helpful because none of them
Of
were very
course.
conclusive, right? Nothing definitively proved that it was painted. Nothing clearly showed it was burned or chemically treated in a way we understand, which basically means that science showed up, ran a bunch of experiments, and then reached the conclusion that it couldn't definitively prove it one way or the other, right? Now, in 1988, things got a lot more decisive. The Vatican, of all people, the Vatican allowed three laboratories in three different countries across the world to conduct
Mm-hmm.
carbon 14 dating on small samples of the shroud. Do you guys know what carbon dating is? Like
yeah.
you
You
must
Yeah,
determine
you
the
yeah, yeah.
age.
must have studied in science in 8th, 9th, 10th class science. It's basically, for
Yeah,
those who don't know, carbon dating is done to find out the age of
Mm-hmm.
historical pieces, basically, right? They literally cut out postage stamp sized pieces of the linen and sent them across to these laboratories across the world. And this was supposed to be the big moment, the final answer to prove it one way or the other. All three labs independently concluded that the cloth dated back to somewhere between 1260 and 1390, which, if you remember your timelines correctly, places it firmly in the medieval period and not first century Jerusalem. Okay, that's one
Mm-hmm.
thing.
yeah,
So at this point, it looked like the mystery had finally been solved. The shroud was
Mm-hmm.
likely a medieval creation. Case closed. Right? Wrong.
Sure.
Except,
I knew it. Knew it.
again, the case was not closed. Almost
Mm-hmm.
immediately, some scientists began questioning the methodology. There were concerns about whether the samples used were representative of the entire cloth, whether repairs or contamination could have affected the results, and whether the testing conditions were entirely reliable. All of this is to say that the one term that we keep on using time and time again, scientific consensus was not reached on this, whatever the outcome
Mm-hmm.
of these tests were, right? And for anyone who gives even an iota of damn about science in general, it's that scientific consensus is extremely, extremely important for anything to be established as a fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair to the Vatican in this very specific case, it didn't immediately declare victory or defeat. Instead, surprisingly so, might I mention, it encouraged further research and investigations into the matter, while also suggesting that people continue to venerate the shroud as an inspiring image of the Christ. And
Why is it
import
surprising? It is like, because this was not first century Jerusalem, it it was actually better for the Victorian for the church to look further into this, right? That to establish that this was actually Jesus' shroud.
I agree. But also at the same time, if we know anything about religious conservatism in general, it is that the first guy that comes across that says this thing is sus, they will take that guy for their word, right? Instead of saying, okay, maybe let's take a step back and test again. You know where I'm coming from?
If only if it is in their favor. If it is not in their favor, they will be like, this is not, this is
Probably yes.
let's
Probably yes. Yeah. You're
and
probably not
that's not
wrong.
true to religion. That's true to all of us. Like
Yeah.
that's how all of us function.
And most importantly, the Holy See. The C is SWE. In case you don't know, the Holy See is what the government of the Roman Catholic Church is referred to as. They're referred to as the
Oh,
Holy
really?
See. Yeah. So the Holy See has never to date made an official statement confirming or denying its authenticity. And we are in 2026 right now. Okay. Till now, not a single statement has been made one way or the other. They just like, eh. So whatever the popes did back in the 14th century is still continuing into the 22nd century, even 21st century, sorry. Right? So even after what was supposed to be the most definitive test, we are still not quite there. And then,
Mm-hmm.
just when you think the story has settled into a steady state of uncertainty, something new comes along, as is the case with anything scientific, right? Now, fast forward to 2022. In 22, researchers in Italy conducted yet another study, this time using a technique called wide angle X ray scattering, or WAXS for short, to analyze the structure of the linen. Now, instead of dating the cloth directly, this method looks at how the material has degraded over time. And what they found was that the structural condition of the shroud's linen was fully compatible with another linen sample that, based on historical records, dates back to somewhere between 55 and 74 CE, which, if accurate, places it right around the time of Christ. Right?
Yeah.
So there are
Right.
also within science, there are two different schools of thought here, like different testing laboratories carried out, different scientific processes were involved, and both of them came back with widely differing results. The researchers suggested that environmental carbon contamination could explain why the earlier carbon dating tests pointed to a medieval origin. In other words, the 1988 results might have been skewed. Now, to be clear, this 2022 study does not prove that the shroud is authentic. We are not claiming that for a
Mhm.
single second. The fucking church doesn't claim that to be true for a single second. So we are nobody's compared to that. The researchers themselves did not make that claim. What it does do is strengthen the possibility that the cloth could be much older than previously thought. That is the only sort of thing that conclusion that has been reached. That there is a
Mhm.
possibility that it could be older than the medieval ages as it was claimed to be in the previous study. And very importantly, they also noted that further testing is needed to confirm these findings, right? So, where does all of this leave us? Exactly where the story seems to love being, right in the middle of uncertainty across the board, right? Despite all of this countless numerous scientific testing, we still don't know for a fact what the fuck is going on with this piece of cloth, right? Like, do you guys have any takeaways, any learnings so far? Like, what are your thoughts on this? Going
I mean, all of
from the
it.
point of you not knowing anything about this to knowing till this point that so much tests have
I
been
knew
carried out,
about
all of
the
this.
existence. I knew about
Yeah.
the existence of Shroud of Turin. I had forgotten it was called Shroud of Turin. But it is, but it doesn't seem like all of this tracks. Because this is
Hmm.
how, especially compared to what you told, what you mentioned in our in the episode of dinosaurs, right? I mean, it takes quite a while for scientific consensus to be reached. It's a piece of cloth. How much work can possibly be done on this so far, right? You have just mentioned like two scientific, experiments that have been done. So that's I imagine not nearly enough to reach a consensus. And it is also very, very clearly possible that there was, I mean, the existence of a bearded dude in first century Jerusalem is not it's not an impossible thing. It's nobody has said that anything, the people mentioned in religious books, whether that is Christianity, whether that is Islam, whether that is Hinduism or anything, Judaism, whatever
Hmm.
it may be, that the people only didn't exist. Maybe they did exist. Maybe it's just what you derived out of it. That was the fuck all part. So all of this sort of tracks, like at, we have just not reached the end of the conclusion. It's an interesting discovery, and it is, I want to see what happens. But none of this is making me feel as if, oh my God, this actually
Hmm.
might be this this is a mystical object or something like that. No, no, friend. You pick up anything from history that does not have enough documented records, everything will go through this process only. And if you spend enough time, money, resources of scientific minds on it, then you might or might not find out about it. That's how science works, unfortunately. So all of this tracks. It's
Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
acceptable, and like it's fully, like my brain can comprehend this.
Hmm.
It's not
Mhm.
something that is blowing my mind, that we have not yet reached a consensus on this. The dinosaurs one did, that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was so
Yeah.
late, because that seems like a more relevant thing to the entire globe than, I don't know, a piece of
Yeah.
cloth.
Yeah. Also, I'd also like to mention that that couple of studies that I mentioned were the most notable ones. Obviously, there have been
Hmm.
countless other studies and researches taking place, but
Ah,
these were the
okay.
most prominent ones, if you will, like which had some sort of consequential results of some kind, one way or the other, right? Also, there have been some other tests also done. So one of the more interesting ones that I came across was done by I'm forgetting the name, but this was, I think he was a Brazil-based sort of graphic artist of some kind. So basically, what that guy did was he did 3D modeling of the Shroud of Turin to see what could have been underneath the shroud to leave such an impression on the shroud, basically, right? And through, I don't know how, because I have zero understanding of how 3D modeling works or what it entails. I did not fully comprehend what he was trying to say, but from what little I could gather, it was he claims that such an impression could only have been left by something which was 3D in shape. Obviously, even a human person is 3D in shape, but at
Hmm.
the same time, that guy's claim is that it could have been like a wooden box in the shape of a person, almost like a mummy casket, if you will, or it could also be a sort of a marble statue in the shape of a person. Basically, something much more denser than a human body would be that could have left those impressions. That was his claim after having done some significant amounts of 3D modeling. It was
Hmm.
interesting, but since A, I did not comprehend it well enough, and B, it is not it was not validated by any of the people in the scientific community. So I did not think of putting it in here because it was interesting for a mention. That's all. So that's why I'm just mentioning it.
It's another fun theory.
Yeah, just another fun theory. So talking about where does all of this leave us? It basically leaves us right on the cusp of yet another ad break. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the show. Now we'll explore the main reason why I went headfirst into this topic in the first place. And that is going back to the news article that I came across, which sort of put everything into motion in the first place, right? So just when you think we've reached the limit of how many times the story can change direction, it finds a way to add just another twist. This entire thing is like the plot of a fucking Dan Brown novel by this point, right? There have been so many fucking twists until then. It's true, it's not true, it's true, it's not true. Oh, who cares? And now it's Indian all of a sudden, so well,
No, we claim everything is Indian. We have done that with fucking Machu Picchu and fuck knows what else. We claim everything is fucking Indian, dude.
well,
That holds no scientific validity whatsoever.
says you, Ashmita.
Please. Did you guys? Oh my God. Have you heard of the story of this man in Dubai who just went around claiming that the that the mosque, some mosque over there was actually a temple and he got arrested? It was glorious. It was such a fantastic. Oh my God, Prakhar. This was a while back when the Ayodhya thing was still going on. At that time, Hindu faction started claiming, especially Hindu NRIs, right? Like amongst
Hmm.
us, they are legitimately some of the worst, worst people. They started getting a little too patriotic and a little too nationalist about everything. And this guy fucking forgot that he was in Dubai.
Hmm.
And and over there, he was like, this mosque was actually a temple. There's a temple underneath this and everything. And he got arrested for it. It was so
My
fun.
God, so stupid, man.
So much fun.
And just for the record,
Yeah.
even if it was a temple underneath there, I mean, we are way past the point of like, why,
It's
why
a
do you need
mosque
to?
now.
Yeah, who
Yes.
cares?
But
Who cares,
do you
bro?
know how many things existed before your house was built
Yeah,
on it?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Fuck off. They're such idiots, dude. Anyway, Sandy, how is the Shroud Indian now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, recently a study came out that looked at something we haven't really talked about so far, which are DNA traces. Like nobody till date had done any kind of DNA testing on the
Hmm.
shroud, right? And what researchers found was honestly a little bit unexpected. They detected genetic material from multiple populations, which in itself isn't shocking given how widely the shroud has traveled over centuries, right?
Yeah.
But among those genetic markers were signals that could be linked to regions including India. And when I say India, I'm specifically talking to the Indus Valley civilization, right? So that is where
Hmm.
some amount of the genetic material apparently was found on the shroud. The authors of the study hypothesize that the shroud may have picked up India related DNA during the textile trade of the past. So, just a very brief history lesson for people who don't know. I am not a history geek myself, but I know a little bit. Is that India, for most of human history, was the hub of all textile trade in the world. India was known for its textiles. So,
Hmm.
anytime there was any textile anywhere in the medieval world, there's a very good chance it might have passed through India at some point,
Yeah.
right?
And this
So,
continued happening till the time Britain brought in power looms
exactly.
and moved So it continued well into modern history.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Up until I would say please don't quote me on the numbers, but I would say probably up until the 19th century even.
19th century, yes.
Yeah.
Because that
Hmm.
So
was when 19th century was when power loom was brought in and
yeah.
materials were shifted to Europe and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. Up until the 19th century, India was literally the textile hub of the world. Pretty much all textile was going exclusively from India,
And
right?
China.
Yeah. I mean, via the Silk Route, of course. That's where the term
Hmm.
also, the Silk Route
I mean,
also
we
comes.
we
So
exported a lot of cotton textiles and China exported a
yes,
lot of silk
silk, yes.
textiles.
But cotton being the cheaper of the two,
Yeah.
I think pretty much 90% of the world's cotton and textiles was being exported from India around that time. Like India was
We
a very, very, very wealthy nation as a result of this textile business that it had going on for a very long amount of time in history, right? So it's absolutely not shocking at all to have found some kind of Indian DNA on a piece of cloth that existed even
yeah.
1,000 years ago, because there's a very good chance it might have gone from India in the first place,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right?
And also people who handled it. Like that's how people work. Like I mean, if you do DNA testing for us also, like the American U 23andMe or whatever, we have, ancestral lineage in a million different places. So
Yeah.
it could have come literally from anywhere. It's a,
Exactly, exactly. So, talking about the India related DNA, this is based, so the study, it is based on the unexpected finding that as much as 38.7% of the DNA contamination in it
Hmm.
came from people with India related maternal lineage. Now, I am not a scientist.
or,
Again, this proves nothing to me, right? Just saying. As
yeah.
someone who has like very basic comprehension of scientific stuff, this does not sound all that unexpected or shocking to me. Now,
Yeah.
before we all jump to conclusions and start building entirely new origin theories, which by the way, people on the internet have already started doing this,
Of course.
it's important to understand what the researchers actually said, and more importantly, what they didn't say, right?
Hmm.
However, if you scroll through any form of social media related to this discovery, you will see a whole host of Indians, especially Hindus, celebrating the fact that Jesus could have Indian origins and that Christians have been worshipping a Hindu god all along for all of these centuries.
God.
Anyway, the presence of DNA from different parts of the world does not mean the shroud originated in those places. It
Hmm.
simply means that at some point in its history, it came into contact with people from those regions. And when you're dealing with an object that has been handled, displayed, transported, and examined by countless individuals over hundreds of years, that's not entirely surprising, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can, it also need not mean that they are from those regions. It might mean that their ancestry is from those
Yes,
regions, which
exactly.
is, it's such a wild card. Like you cannot say anything with this.
And just again, if just because we are speculating, even if the genes go back to the Indus Valley civilization, what's to say that some person from the Indus Valley civilization didn't just travel outside and settled in the Mediterranean around that time, and then that came into contact with that person as well? Like as long as
Yeah.
we're speculating about the origins of it, there are so many countless possibilities of what
I
might have
mean,
happened, right?
migration was a very common thing back then, no? So,
Yeah.
Migration has
No,
always been a
migration
very
was
common
not.
thing.
yeah.
No, 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 no. Intercontinental migration was very, very difficult at that point of time.
Yeah,
It is
no,
much more likely that the descendants
yeah,
did so,
Hmm.
descendant.
which is very valid. And the least valid theory, like absolutely a
Mm.
fucking impossible theory, is that Jesus was a Hindu god. Like, calm the
Yeah.
fuck down.
Not
But
even Hindu god. He was a
Yeah.
Hindu by.
No,
I mean,
Hindu god
okay,
is what they
we,
are
we,
saying.
we, we are
And
we
we
are
have
not
so
claiming,
many.
okay, let me explain the chain of thought, right? So they are not claiming Jesus to be Hindu, right? They are
Hmm.
claiming Jesus to be Indian. And because Jesus could be Indian, obviously it means that Jesus is a
Hmm.
Hindu. You know, that's
See,
that's
Ashmita,
how the train
you
of
see
thought is going.
what happened here? You see what happened here? The way we've brainwashed. If you're Indian, you're just Hindu.
That's what,
See
no,
how
Sandy said in the comment section, people are saying that the Christians have been worshipping a Hindu god all along.
Yeah.
Just
And does this chain of thought not make sense to you? That because he might have been Indian, obviously he might have been Hindu. You know what I'm saying?
yes,
In fact, the study found genetic traces not just from India, but from various parts of Europe and the Middle
of
East
course.
as well, right? Which, if anything, reflects the journey of the fucking shroud rather
Hmm.
yeah.
than proving anything about where it came from.
And Middle East is not surprising at all. Jerusalem is the hub of
Jerusalem is in the Middle East.
all,
Yes,
yeah, it's the hub of all religious activity for a very long period of time. So, of
yes.
course, it has traces from there.
Also, Constantinople, Istanbul as we know it, it was the seat
Hmm.
of
Yeah,
power for a very significant portion of history. The Ottoman
yeah,
Empire, one of the biggest empires in
yeah,
the world,
yeah.
in
Hmm.
the history of the world, its seat of power was Constantinople, and Constantinople is a
Yeah.
stone's throw away from Jerusalem. You know,
Hmm.
so, but, and this is where it gets interesting. It does add another layer to how widely this object might have traveled, or at least how many different cultures and populations it has intersected with over time, right? Because now, instead of asking just, is this real or not, you're also asking, where has this been? Who has interacted with it? And how many different hands has it passed through over the last however many centuries, right?
Hmm.
The researchers themselves were quite careful in making any of these claims. By the way, the researchers did not claim that the shroud was Indian or even Jesus Christ was Indian.
Of course not.
Of
Okay,
Of
course.
course
just
not.
again and again, I'm repeating this for the record. Under no circumstance did they say that the shroud or even Jesus was Indian. They just said
The Indian
that they found some
Express,
DNA evidence which
Hmm.
could be Indian. There's a difference. Okay, there's a
the
That's
difference.
Indian
enough for.
Express used to be better, a better newspaper, right? Or was it always this fuck all? Was
I
it
don't know.
always Times of India level, or was
Okay.
it a
No, I think this is the case with most digital newspapers. They need to make everything clickbaity. So
Exactly.
I don't know whether I genuinely don't know whether Indian Express is good or bad or where on the spectrum it lies. But I would not judge newspapers or the authenticity based on the headline. I would actually go through the material because the headlines are almost always decided by whoever the editor for the digital edition is, and their
so
job is to get most clicks.
did this material did the actual article, did it make correct claims, or was it just
Yeah, there are
what? It
some
made correct claim?
yeah, there's a controversy around the shroud, they claim. Then potentially there's a word potentially, which is the biggest word for me. Potentially linked to interactions with the Indus Valley, referred to as Hinduin, according to the rabbinic test. So
Okay.
they have used some the like in law cases you have to use allegedly a lot of
Yeah.
times,
Hmm.
just to
Yeah.
be clear. So similarly in scientific stuff, allegedly, potentially, these are some maybe, perhaps, might be, could be. These are some very keywords that you need to use until and unless it's been like written in stone that it's absolutely a fact, right?
Hmm.
The researchers themselves were quite careful. They didn't claim that it proves anything about the shroud's authenticity. They didn't say this confirms any particular theory even. What they did say is that the genetic diversity found on the cloth suggests a complex history of exposure and movement, which is fine, which is true, right? Which is, at this point, exactly what you would expect from something like this, right?
Yeah.
So, once again, we don't get a clean answer. We don't get closure of
Hmm.
any kind. What we get instead is another piece of information that makes the story richer, more complicated perhaps, and slightly harder to pin down. And honestly, if you've made it this far into the Shroud of Turin, That's just kind of the pattern, right?
Yeah.
And with that, we come to the end of the episode. So, my recommendation of the week.
Recommendation time.
It is yet another dropout IP known as Dimension 20, which is a dedicated Dungeons and Dragons channel. But even though I would recommend the entire channel itself, I want to give a very special shout out to one of their series in particular, known as the Crown of Candy. This is something I have
Mm-hmm.
been harping to Ashmita for about a week. Now I've been trying to sort of make her watch this with me because, dear God, it's so fucking good, dude. It's so fucking good. And
While we
even
are already watching another D20 Dimension 20 series, okay?
yeah,
Meanwhile, Sandy is like, we have to watch this one multiple times.
yes, because how often have you seen me bat for a show or a movie this hard, dude? Like
The
genuinely,
last
like
was Ted Lasso.
yes. See,
Mm-hmm.
and where did that get
It was
us?
worth it. Mm.
Yes, I don't make these recommendations willy-nilly. I genuinely, it has to overtake my soul for me to sort of, make such kind of sweeping recommendations. So yeah, the Crown of Candy, it sounds ridiculous. It is a slightly a bit ridiculous, but it is hands down one of the best seasons of any show I've ever seen, hands down. Though all the players and the other NPCs, for those who don't know, NPCs are non-playable characters in any kind of game, are anthropomorphic food people based on various food groups such as vegetables, candies, fruits, breads, etc. So pretty much every character in this show is some kind of food, but it is a series with serious political intrigue, betrayal, drama, and of course improvised comedy. That goes with the entire dropout vibe only, right? It is just a significantly better version of Game of Thrones, in my very humble opinion. To be very honest, I'm still not a very big fan of Game of Thrones, to be very honest.
Very
I,
big fan. Have you watched it?
I have seen about
You're
four,
not
four
a.
seasons. I've seen about 4 seasons of
Oh,
Game of
really?
Thrones.
Oh,
You've
Yeah.
seen more. You've seen more than I have. I saw 2 seasons and then read the synopsis of all of the other seasons because I could not. I legitimately could not read the books. Also, it was boring for me. Maybe I should. I was telling Sandy I should pick up one of those books again. But back to Dimension 20.
it's not actually that bad if you push through. It's not that bad.
I don't want to push
Just
through
just the
entertainment.
mere fact that you said push through it explains
Yeah.
Mm.
everything. If you
I
genuinely
don't
love
want to
something, you
push
are not pushing through
through.
something, right? You're genuinely sitting
No,
back and enjoying it.
For Ashmita, I liked it. But for
I
Ashmita,
don't want to
because
I
push through.
she,
I don't
I
want to
found
push
it to
through.
be
I
an
want to be,
yeah,
yeah, I want to be entertained. I wanted to capture my imagination and I wanted to be entertaining. Otherwise, I will choose something else to be entertained by when there are so many options there. But
fair.
oh, Game of Thrones can be my next background show.
sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Also, in case if this is any more of a harder sell for you, Ashmita. So in one of the talkback shows about the Crown of Candy, so Brennan Lee Mulligan, who's the DM for most of the D20 shows, he specifically mentioned that the Crown of Candy was also created to as sort of a middle finger to George R.R. Martin because he basically he was a lazy fucking ass with all the names of the show. Like basically he took very basic ass names and made one alphabet disappear from it, and that was the name of the character in the
Yeah.
show, right? And that's how most of the characters are also named in a Crown of Candy. And basically, in a talk back, he was like, uh, just because R.R. Martin acted like a lazy fucking ass and didn't put any effort at all into naming the main characters of the fucking show he was writing, I just wanted to
Book.
sort of book, yeah,
Book.
which later got into the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't put any thought into naming. He just made one vowel disappear, and that's the fucking name from any other random ass name. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, if you are a D&D fan, or even if you're a fan of medieval history, political drama, and betrayal and backstabbing, I would
Or
highly
fantasy
recommend
fiction.
in fantasy fiction. Yes, I
Fantasy
would
fiction.
highly recommend checking this out. You'll get the hang of the game mechanics within the first episode itself. It's very easy to get the hang of it. Once you see it happen enough times, it's very self-explanatory. But dear God, it was one of the best shows I've ever seen, like genuinely. And I'm not usually a very big fan of such political thrillers or this political intrigue dramas, but it genuinely blew my mind away. And it is even more mind-blowing when you realize that about 80% of any D&D show that these guys make is improvised. It's extremely
Mm-hmm.
improvised. They're basically making
That's
up the
the
story as they go. So
that's the game
it's just
itself also, no? Like, I have
so
never played D&D, but that is
it depends on who your DM is. So some people, like Brennan has mentioned this time and time again, he relies completely on his improvisational skills. So that's where his storytelling comes from. So pretty much all the story, he just has a starting point. He has no end in sight. Wherever the players take him, he goes along with. He just makes up story on the go. Some people like to have like guardrails of how the story should go. They have a and they try to play around in between. Some people are very strict about how the story should go. So it depends on who your DM is, but about 80 to 85% of all of the series and shows and stories are improvised by these people, and frankly, it's
crazy.
absolutely mind-boggling to me. Like the
It
people can
is
actually do that,
crazy. Yeah,
So
it's
this just
we are watching one of the shows, one of the game series right now of Dimension 20, and it is a spin, like a horror spin on
Mm-hmm.
the fairy tales. So all of the fairy tales worlds come together. Sleeping Beauty, Red Riding Hood. Red Riding Hood in this one is a werewolf. Sleeping Beauty is there. Then there is Pinocchio and Puss in Boots and all of these. And it's a horror story that has been made in. And it's such a complex story because you have to bring in all existing elements of different stories and then create a new story out of it. Already creating a new story is such a difficult task. And doing that improv is insane. It is insane. It seems like
yeah,
somebody spent like months writing it. It's
yeah.
fantastic.
And you need to know the source material for pretty much all of this by heart, like inside out. You need to know the source material to be able to even be able to improvise within those in the same
Yeah.
fantasy world. Like at least anyway, dude. I didn't think I would end up loving any kind of D&D stuff this intimately, but dear God, it's so good, dude. It's so fucking good. I can't even tell you how good it is. So yeah, if you get the time, if you have
It's
even the
not,
remotest interest in any kind of D&D stuff, yeah, go on.
also, it is not remotely surprising that you like D&D. It is a nerd heaven.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like
fair,
it's not even remotely surprising.
fair, probably,
Yeah.
yeah, probably. And on that note, we're just about to wrap up the episode, and before we sign off, as always, we'd request you to please write to us if you have any more of such interesting topics in mind. Write to us at don'tknowdocare1@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us either over YouTube or on Instagram. We are at DKTC Podcast on both of those platforms. Please reach out to us in our comments. Please like and subscribe if you can. Please share it with your friends and family. It helps us out massively. Go to your platform of choice, such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and please give us good rating, preferably there. So, so that more and more people can find and engage with our podcast.
It's
I
a
can't
lot
think
to
of any. Yeah, yeah.
ask.
No, I know. I know. I know.
So many
Anyway,
action points.
yeah, any of these, like just do any one of these things, we'll be good to go. If you can do more than
Yeah.
one, like you are literally a god for us. So we'll
The
send you our
top
own version of the
priority
Shroud of Turin to you.
The top priority is to please share with your friends and family because that's how we get all of our new listeners. So if you like this, please, if you don't want to do anything else, I fully get it. I listen to podcasts all the time and forget to rate them, but I do talk about them and I do share them.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
please share the podcast with your friends and family so that we can actually get in more listeners.
yeah. And on that note, we'll take your leave. Until next time, take care. Bye bye.